Okay, we're on lesson number 176 of the Workbook of A Course in Miracles, and it's another one in review lessons. And one of the reasons why I'm laughing is it's not because I don't enjoy these review lessons. It's just that they're just, it's all about the practical application and the willingness to do them without the need, in a sense, for any commentary or to understand them at all. And again, we're using the phrase, God is but love, and therefore so am I. Give me your blessing, Holy Son of God. God is but love, and therefore so am I. And I am as God created me. And as I was always sitting here trying to come up with something to say, or if there was anything to say, because there's really not much to say about these particular lessons, because in fact it is in the doing of the lessons and the willingness to let them be true in spite of any resistance that may come up when we do them or when we read them. Thinking of it, I am as God created me. Well, there's a line in the ego, there's a line in the Course that talks about the fact that it's only the ego that questions. And of course, it's always questioning based on its existence as the denial and the distraction from the coming to know and the understanding that we're being offered as we release our minds from being controlled by our identification with the ego. So, if I were to read this, I am as God created me, well, the first thing you would want to know is, okay, well, what am I? If I am as God created me, what am I as God created me? Blah, 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 blah. But it's actually in releasing your mind from the demands of the ego to know within its own conceptual association with itself what it means to be created by God, as always, as opposed to what it means to be not created by God. Or if I am created, if I am as God created me, then what does that mean? And what did God not create? In a sense, that's the way the ego operates. So it's a funny situation, because in reality there's nothing that is not created by God, and yet we're learning that the illusion of space and time is not, and the image that we think is participating in the illusion of space and time is not what God created at all. In fact, it doesn't exist at all. But if the ego can keep you stuck in opposition, and that's what the ego is, it's opposition to God, it's the denial of its own reality as being single all purpose. So if the ego can keep you stuck within oppositional perceptions and associations in your own mind, you'll always be bouncing back and forth. Well, if I'm not this, then I am this. If I'm not this, then I am that. If I'm this, then I'm not that. And none of that bears any resemblance to what you are as God created you, because God created you infinite, whole, and perfect, outside of which there is no creation. And together with all of our brothers in Christ, we create as God created us to create, and that's what we're discovering. So when the ego begins to present its opposition in its need to ask questions, and it's all based on the same question: how did the impossible happen? And of course the answer is always the impossible didn't happen. Yet conceptually, that's not very satisfying, because the answer is always beyond the conceptions and the perceptions that we use to make up the world around us in an attempt to understand what is not only not understandable, but is impossible as well. This morning, as I was doing this lesson, something dawned on me, and I'm trying to bring it back into my memory at this point in time, because it seemed quite pertinent in regards to doing these lessons, and it had to do with releasing our minds from the attempt to figure them out and understand, because it is in the doing of these lessons and the willingness to let them be true, and let all of the ideas that come to our mind based on the ego's attempt to convince us that it can know within the parameters of limitation that it sets upon the self that it wants you to identify with, that it continues to offer the unsatisfactory answers in order to keep you questioning, rather to experience the certainty that is contained within knowing who you are within the kingdom, because in that knowing there is no opposition, and there's no such thing as not knowing, or the best that Jesus used the term "know not." You're only capable of knowing. You're not capable of not knowing. That's impossible within reality. There is only knowing. When we fell from grace for a second, we went in a condition of knowing not what we are, knowing not what God created us to be. And in the extreme discomfort, the extreme conflict that caused within the psyche of man, we began to imagine what we are based on what we would want and how we would think things should be, but it was all within the forgetting, and it bears no resemblance to the reality of what we are as perfect, whole, infinite, and eternal within the kingdom of love, in which there is no opposition and there is no opposite. So it's interesting. It's interesting, God is but love, and therefore so am I. Give me your blessing, Holy Son of God. And as I said earlier in one of the early lessons, when Jesus took something and blessed it, he incorporated it into his being as part of him. And when it became part of him, it became part of, in a sense, the eternal and infinite nature of the abundance of the kingdom, which allowed him to utilize anything to demonstrate the reality of the kingdom and the unreality of the laws of man. And that's what we're looking to free ourselves from, as we release ourselves from the limitations that we place upon ourselves. And there are self-imposed limitations as we discover those limitations, and in the light of what we're learning in these lessons, decide that they can't be true, and the limitations are no longer valuable. When the limitations that we place upon ourselves no longer are valuable within our desire to know who we are as perfect, whole, and unlimited in nature, then the limitations simply slip away, and we go from the littleness, the self-imposed littleness, to the experience of the magnitude of the being that we are as God created us to be. Again, don't try to understand these lessons the way you were taught in school, let's say, to come to understand the lessons that you were being taught in regards to history or English or, geometry or reading. The understanding comes after forgiveness. So first we forgive ourselves for the knowing not what we did, in the recognition that as we free our mind from all the past perceptions that we've held and thought were valuable. See, the trick is the reason why we believed them was because we thought what we had learned and what we were taught or what we were asked to know or the images that we made up, we thought they had value within our need to survive, to be who we are in space and time and live. What you've now come to understand, I hope, through these lessons is that everything that we previously thought of value and was valuable in an attempts to know ourselves and to survive in the world of space and time and to do what we would like to do, everything that we were taught in that regard are blocks to the awareness of the presence of love, which is our real identity and which is our reality. Now, when your mind shifts because all of a sudden you no longer want to know in that way because you've not been satisfied, it's not satisfactory being that, you're feeling the pains of the limitation you placed upon yourself, what begins to happen is something other than all that becomes valuable, and when we desire that value above all else, that which is no longer valuable within the pursuit of our goal simply begins to fall away and are eliminated as blocks to the goal that we're attempting to achieve in the coming to know ourselves as I am created by God, as God created me. God is but love, and therefore so am I. And, the ego will bring to mind all the, well, you say, well, yeah, but what about that? You did that. That wasn't loving. If it was just love, why isn't it like this? That's just the way the ego wants us to cycle in our own mind as a distraction from going deep within ourselves, below where all the distraction exists, in order to allow that which we are to begin to come back into our awareness, because that is valuable within the pursuit of the goal of accepting the atonement for ourselves and fulfilling our function as God created us. So God is but love, and therefore so am I. Give me your blessing, Holy Son. You're the Holy Son of God Himself. Let's join in accepting the blessing of the Christ through Jesus that's obvious being offered to us within this incredible workbook of A Course in Miracles, as we allow these experiences to begin to inform us of the reality of the theoretical framework, which helps us understand how a true nature has a soul within the kingdom of heaven, imbued with the Spirit of God, which is one. And as we bless, so are we blessed. And as we receive the blessing, as the lesson before this, we can give as we have received. So as we receive the blessing from the Holy Son of God, it is natural in the joy of the reception and the experience of being blessed as that we would want to share that, because sharing wholly in the truth of who we are as a soul in reality is the way the kingdom increases, and that is our function. So give me your blessing, Holy Son of God. Why? Because we are as God created us. Nothing else matters. Nothing else is true. Everything else is just is just stuff, imagery, ideas that exist within the falsity of an illusion of space and time and have no bearings and never had on the nature of who we are. And is that which we want to know about when we say, I am as God created me. Don't let the ego thwart you in coming to experience of knowing yourself as God created you.